Hey everyone, I thought this would be a fun series to start to actually first of all talk about the game a little bit, the game design, but also help the developers make this game more enjoyable than it already is for a lot of different players of all different skill levels, right? So post your comments down below. Let me know what you guys think. This is going to be a discussion point so that our devs, if they're reading the comments section, will have a better understanding of what the community wants. Now, what does a fun game look like to me? All right. So for me, a fun game is, and everyone's going to have a different perspective on this, but for me, a fun game is when two people are in a game of, they're having an actual battle for territory and they're trying to outsmart one another, right? So what does that mean? So let's say this is player A over here, and then there's player B over here, right? Player A is, assembling his forces here. He's moving to go and raid here. And then, let's say he's successful at this raid. Then he pulls back. He's going to cover some territory here to protect his villagers that are working. And on the other side, the other player is, responding to this raid. And then after he responds to this raid, he sees that his opponent positioned his army here. So he goes and hits him from the back right there. And this process repeats over and over and over again for like 15-20 minutes of the game until they finally have a decisive battle over key territory somewhere on the map. Maybe, there's a trade route going from here to here, and they have a decisive battle. One person wins, blocks off the trade route, and the game is over. Or another example is, sorry if this is not that clear or whatnot, but another example is, let's say they're fighting over in the middle of the map, right? And, there's a settlement here, and there's a settlement here, and there's a settlement here. And on the other side, the blue player has the same thing, a settlement here, here, and here, right? These settlements are population spaces, right? You have a ton of population space in here. So if one player has this settlement and the other player, captures it and takes it over, so now the red player has 4 settlements, he's going to have a decisive population advantage and he's going to win. So what does that mean? They're going to have a decisive battle over this territory right here, right? That makes sense, right? So like essentially all it is I'm saying that a strategy game should be about strategy. It should be about fighting over important territory, having multiple battles, having raids here, having, skirmishes here, having, sieging someone's a base here. And then all of these factors all culminate, and then you have one decisive battle that ends up changing the game, right? But what does Retold have presently? Well, Retold has one thing presently. It skips this most of the time. It skips this most of the time, and it skips this most of the time. And what we're ending up with is just one decisive battle, and the game is over, right? So we don't have all these little tiny skirmishes. Usually the game is just over from one decisive battle. And why is that happening? Well, the reason why I think this is happening is because now population caps are way higher, right? So in Age of Mythology, if you are on one town center and your opponent's on one town center, I think you guys get up to 175 population space, right? So each settlement means a lot less, right? Each settlement, I think, is around 15 population space. So if each settlement is 15 population space, think about that as having, I think, like 4 hippias, right? Around 4 hippias, or like, let's say 5 hippias, or even less, even more, a little bit more in hoplites or something like that, right? Is 5 hippias enough to change the game, right? A discrepancy of 5 hippias. So let's say you're missing out on one town center, you're down 15 population space. Is that 15 population space instrumental? I would say usually not, because the armies are already so big that it doesn't matter that much if you have an extra couple of units here and there. Most of the time, the units are not even going to be fighting because of pathing issues, right? So what does that mean? It means these town centers, these population space town centers, they mean a lot less now, right? And the other thing is gold mines. Now, usually the gold mines are very aggressively placed on most maps. So you have one here and you have one here. I would say this is actually a very safe map. So like usually it's not this good, but on this map, I mean, he has it a little bit worse than me, but It's one here, and then there's one out here in no man's land. So the decisive battle comes a lot sooner than it used to come, because now, instead of you raiding, instead of you sieging an opponent's base, instead of you having all these skirmishes, you know that, okay, if I block him off this gold mine, we're going to have one decisive battle and the game is over. Same thing for him, right? One decisive battle and the game is over. That's the first thing. The second thing is they're having decisive battles. If somebody wins a decisive battle, let's say that, two players go duke it out right here in the middle of the map and one player wins, the game is usually over. Why? Well, because there's not that fortifications in this game are rather on the weaker side, so there's no defender's advantage. And the second thing is population space is so high. If you have 175 population space and you want a battle, you're going to have maybe like you lost 20 units or 30 units or so, right? And your opponent is going to be completely at zero. So you're going to be able to run him over very, very quickly, right? So let me just show you guys some examples, right? These are some games that I played recently. There's a few of them I played. Now, I'm playing very strange. I'm just trying random stuff right now, things that I would never normally do. I just want to experiment a little bit and see how different things work. So here I went for just all-out aggression on my opponent's base. I know this is probably not the optimum strategy, but I thought it would be fun to try, so that's what I did here. So I started making some spearmen. I'm gonna go really fast because I want to show you guys a lot of different games. So this is one of 4, I think, that I want to show you guys. But you can see that I'm trying to do damage. First of all, I can't really do damage, right? Reason why is he's just sitting and chilling in his base, right? He has tons of food, right? Which is here. He has berries. He has deer. He has some chicken. So he doesn't need to move out of the confines of his base. He's going to be situated inside of his base. And then he has this town center, and this wood line is relatively close. So there's really nowhere I can actually do any raids at this point. If you look at his base, really nothing I can do. So, but in any case, I try anyways. I thought it would be fun to just give it a shot and try. But you can see that I was mostly unsuccessful. But at the same time, I did kill a couple villagers here and there, and I made him farm a little bit early. So that allowed me to kind of stay even with him in the game. So population space, he's at 56 and I'm at 105. Let's look at the villager numbers. I'm at, how do I check this? I think Boyd had a way of checking. Oh, I'm at 45 and he's at probably like 60, I would say. 41. So I'm actually ahead. I have more villagers and I have more army. So this aggression, I just thought I would do some mindless aggression. It actually worked in my favor because I am ahead. But now this is the problem, right? You don't need to do anything else. The opponent just amasses a massive army, right? He's going to make this army, he's going to make a killer army, and he's going to hit me with bronze. So you're going to see very shortly. And just a second. Okay, so he hit bronze. Now I could run from here, but if I run, I'm going to be giving up this gold mine as well. And maybe running would have been the better option, but essentially, if I run, he's going to catch my units that are retreating, and he's going to destroy this, he's going to destroy this, and I'm going to have to run over here, and I'm probably dead anyways. So I kind of had to fight. So I fought here. You can see, look, the town center is kind of like tickling the center. I don't think it's doing anything, really. Barely doing anything. And the bronze units are so strong that almost none of them die, right? So what happens here? And this is not me saying god powers are too OP, by the way. That's a different discussion. This is me saying that the game is over if you lose one fight, which is the case in almost, I would say 70% of my games. There's no back and forth. If you lose a fight, the game is essentially over. Now I made some towers here, but it doesn't do anything, right? So that's one example. Now I want to show you guys a couple more, right? So let's go to my replays. I'm going to do this on ×4 so we can get this really quick. I just wanted to show you guys just the overarching theme of what I'm going to talk about in a bit. Okay, so same thing here. Once again, I'm just trying different strategies at the moment. These are not something that you should copy. They're probably not optimal. And they're just me just trying out different things. So here, it's essentially kind of the same story, right? Which you'll see very shortly. I wish they got they got rid of the fast x16. I wish that was still there. Okay, so he's doing the same thing right here. He's going for h3, and he's going to do bronze, and he's going to hit me with a really strong timing. But this time I knew it was coming because he did it to me last time, so I'm like, okay, he's probably going to do the same thing again, right? So he is preparing, and I knew he's coming. So this time I thought I was ready. I put like 3 towers up, right? And I had made a lot of priests. I made a lot of army. I skipped the h3, and I'm just getting ready for the push that's about to happen. But here, he just clicks bronze, and he pushes into me. I thought I was ready. I thought these 3 towers would be enough, but little did I know they were not. Okay, so he won the fight and he won the game, right? So I'm going to show you guys one last example, and then we're going to talk a little bit about why this is not a good thing, right? So I think we played one more, which was this one. Okay, now this one, I thought, okay, I'm not going to do this random stuff anymore. I'm actually going to play properly because I want to win. But you'll see the difference here, right? So kind of did the same thing, just instead of, actually, I didn't do the same thing. Instead of going for, all-out aggression with spears and some Anubites and stuff like that, I thought, okay, let me play a more macro-oriented game, which is more relevant to my style. And I think it's more strategically oriented rather than just try to kill him with some spears and stuff, right? You can see I took the middle. I have 3 town centers, and I know what he's going to do as well. He did the same thing. I think he does the same thing. He does this strategy every game kind of thing, right? And so this time I was ready for it. Look, one fight and the game is over. 13 minutes. So what is all of this saying? Like, let's summarize. Who cares if that happens, right? But I don't think that's good. Why? Because games should be back and forth. Games shouldn't be, I have a bigger army, a better god power. Let me click it, an A move, and if I win the fight, I win the game, right? This is my point. I don't think games should be like this. I think this is not fun, right? If you're watching, like, let's say you're watching a soccer game. If you're watching a soccer game and the score is 2-1, right? You still think that one team has a chance to come back, right? And that's why you continue to watch. Because no matter if unless it's like 6-0, but if it's 2-1, 3-1, you're like, okay, there's still a chance of a comeback. It's happened before, it can happen again. Well, in Age of Mythology, comebacks are less limited, right? You're not going to come back like in a soccer game or a hockey game or a basketball game. Once you have a lead, well, usually you can't come back. Because why, right? Now this is the why. So why? The why is it's multitude of things. It's not just one thing, right? It's a lot of different things. But personally, I believe it's population caps. Since the game has larger population caps, if you win a fight, your army is strong enough to siege down bases, right? If you have 175 population space, let's say 100 pop in army, you can take down anything. You can take down keeps, you can take down towers, you can take down anything. It doesn't matter. You don't need a catapult, you don't need a Petropolis, you don't need a Heliopolis or any type of siege unit. Your human units are strong enough to take down any building in the game. That's how it kind of works in Age of Mythology, right? So the first thing is population caps. The second thing I believe is god powers. Now I've spoken about this quite a bit, right? But if someone uses bronze and they have a really reasonable army, then, and you don't have an offensive god power, let's say that you're playing Egyptian and you have Locust Swarm and your opponent has bronze, right? So you're never gonna win a fight, right? Because, well, you're never gonna win a fight versus Locust Swarm if you have Locust Swarm and your opponent has bronze, because his god power is just way stronger than yours. So if it's a game of, I win the fight, I win the game, then most of the time you're going to lose, because offensive god power is going to crush this offensive god power of Locust Swarm, right? Or Citadel or something like that. So I think if you tone these down, right? If you tone down bronze to a point where it's very impactful but not completely broken, meaning you can still kind of fight an army, but you're at a disadvantage, then these matchups become a lot closer, and these games become a lot more back and forth rather than, hey, I have a bronze, you don't. I'm gonna click bronze and I'm gonna win. Or same thing, I have flaming weapons, right? Let's say if I have flaming weapons and my opponent has let's just say he has Citadel. Well, he's not going to be able to win a fight with Citadel, right? So a lot of the times you're just going to lose, and there's going to be no back and forth between you, right? Because one army is stronger. The next thing is defensive fortifications. I still think towers are too weak, right? I think fortresses are kind of in an okay spot, especially since in the heroic age you can get ballistics, which gives them enhanced accuracy. But I think towers are generally in a bad spot. Reason why is, let's take a look, for example. Let's see if I still have this open. One tower, right, is about 10 pierce damage, and it costs about 200 gold. And if you think about it, the villager building it loses about a minute. So let's call this 260 resources to build this tower, just give or take a little bit, right? What is 260 resource? What is a tower equivalent to? Well, this medium Hippias, which costs less than that, is 12 damage a second. Now you might be saying, well, who cares, right? This has 750 HP and this one has 165. But this one is a stationary building. It can't add any value to your game. This one can raid, it can move around the map, it can pick off units. You decide where you want to fight. This one can't move from this spot. So they both have their pros and cons, but the damage output for this, not only is it 10 damage per second, a little bit on the lower side, the second thing is this is going to be missing most of its shots until you get ballistics. Now, I think they did buff it here with the track rating. I don't know how effective it is yet, though. I guess it's still pretty decent. Maybe this is it. But I still feel like it kind of misses a lot of its shots. So yeah, 10 damage per second, it's not going to be that influential. So do you really want to spend 260 resources on that tower? Probably not, right? Like a town center does a reasonable amount of damage, 30 damage per second. How much does this one do? 30 damage per second or so. But these ones don't. Now, the argument is there's already very little, very little potential to do damage in your opponent's base. If you buff towers, no one's going to be aggressive anymore. I think this is true, but this is also true because of the way maps are designed right now. If you put too much food inside someone's base, he's never going to have to leave. And as a result of never having to leave, you're going to basically get these type of games where one person just sits in his base, makes a mega army, A moves, and wins, right? You're not going to have a lot of back and forths. Now, bear in mind, I'm speaking from somebody at a different ELO level. So maybe in your ELO, or if you're playing single player, things are very, very different. But in my ELO level, usually a lot of the games just come down to one bad fight or one big fight, right? Is that fun? I think it's still fun. I still love this game. I think it's a fun game. But is it as fun as it could be? I don't think so. So defensive fortifications would allow you, let's say he lost this battle, right? But he has 15 damage per second towers, and he puts down 2 or 3. I can't push in anymore at that point. I have to wait because it's hard to actually do anything to that. So now the only thing is early game towers, I think they can't be too strong. I do understand that point, but maybe they should start getting, like once you hit age 3, they should automatically get a damage increase or something like that. And also, like, a lot of fights are coming down to second gold mines, right? Maybe it's beneficial for people to make towers at their second gold mines. So if towers were a little bit better, even in the classical age, might still be kind of useful, right? But that's another point. Anyways, so population caps is 1, god powers 2nd, defensive fortifications 3rd. What else can we really say, right? Now, when I say population caps, let me just rephrase. Right now, all of the population is in these houses, right? So you put, I think the town center is 15, and then each house you get 10. So then you get like 175, I believe, but don't quote me on that. Right? I think it's 175. What I think is better is if these town centers were, instead of 15, instead each town center is maybe like 25, right? So instead of 15, maybe make it 25 or make it 20, and then make these more impactful. So if you make these town centers more impactful, A, you're gonna reduce the amount of, like, my army's bigger, I'm gonna A, move and win, because you now, instead of 175 pop, you have, let's say, 165 pop, right? Which is still not doesn't make a huge difference, but it still makes a difference nonetheless. The lower you get this number, the more skirmishes you have and less big one-time battles and the game is over kind of things you have, I think. Um, what else can we say? What other reasons are there for this, right? I think the other reason is nothing to really attack. I think honestly this is the main thing. Now, this is also an issue with maps. Like if you have Alfheim and you have this big cliff right here, right? How exactly are you going to attack your opponent? You can't. But this is one of the most defensive maps in the game. I think most maps need to be in a place where, players can find ways to do damage to your opponent. You don't want, playing Civ, like a Civ simulator for 15 minutes, have one big fight and the game is over. I think you want to have constant action where, you're raiding and you're trying to pick off your opponent's villagers and army and stuff like that, or even his buildings and stuff like that. So, how do you fix that? Now, I know this one is a little bit complicated because a lot of casual players want a lot of food in their base and resource in their base, so that they don't want to have, like, somebody described it as like sweaty palms, just like microing at 7 minutes to survive. I understand that. I fully understand that. But there needs to be some sort of thought as to how we can make this better. Um, One option is make, hunting a little bit better. So, for example, let's see if there's any more hunt left on the map. There's not. But usually hunting is at the same speed as berries, or sorry, chicken, right? If hunting is the same speed as chicken, why would you ever put your villagers at risk and go to hunt when they're about the same speed? Not to mention that you have to walk to your hunt, right? So, um, does it make sense? Probably not. You're putting your villagers at risk, and the gathering speed, when you take into consideration the walking time, is probably even lower than chicken. So maybe hunt could get a little bit of a buff there. But just essentially, this is mostly a talking point. I don't want this video to go for too long. I just want you guys to tell me what you guys think is a fun game.